It is your queen of chaos, Aryn Eris, and you are watching the Fans View podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View podcast. This week, very excited. My guest is hailing from Abilene, Texas originally, and after just 3 years in the professional wrestling business, she's really starting to make a name for herself on that indie scene. Today's guest is the Queen of Chaos herself, Miss Aryn Eris. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I can't complain. Nobody wants to hear it anyway, right? Thank you so much for making the time to join us tonight. I know it's been a little chaotic, so I'm glad we could sit down and get this done.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're just going to jump right into it because I'm just not good at small talk. For fans seeing you, for the first time, who is Aryn Eris? Like, both inside and outside the ring.
So I am the queen of chaos. I do what I want when I want because I want, and nobody tells me what I can do other than me. And that's basically who I am. I am a bad bitch who does whatever the heck she wants.
Love that. And that kind of segues right into my next question. How much of your character is you with the volume turned way up, and how much of it is a performance?
So, I always, try to, have, my personal life and my wrestling life separate. But I feel like Aryn Eris is me, turned up to 12, But, I mean, we exaggerate a little bit, because if I was like this in my personal life, 100% of the time I'd be in prison right now. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the attitude and everything, parts of that are me, but the aggression and violence, we tone it up a little bit.
Yeah, obviously. Maybe just a smidge. To go back to the beginning, when did you first fall in love with professional wrestling?
So I fell in love with wrestling from a very young age, thanks to my father. My dad always had wrestling on Monday nights. He took me to indie shows. So as much as he tries to deny it, he's the reason that I fell in love with the industry. So, I mean, it started, oh my gosh, back as far as I can remember, like toddler years.
Nice. And who were some of your favorites growing up?
So I used to love to watch my dad's old wrestling tapes, and he had a lot of stuff over Bret Hart. He's my favorite of all time. So I loved the Hitman. I loved the D-Generation X era. I loved Trish and Lita. And then if we move into the early 2000s, I loved Eve Torres, Molly Holly, Edge and Christian. So those are kind of some of my favorites.
I love that. I'm a fellow Bret Hart fan, so we can
Yes.
definitely agree on that. I honestly expect you to go Shawn, being a Texas girl, so that's actually pretty surprising.
See, I like Shawn. I do love Shawn too, but I feel like being as diehard of a Hitman fan as I can't
Yep.
I can't use Bret and Shawn in the same sentence. It's a sin.
I love that. I appreciate that as well. Obviously you had a lot of favorites growing up, but is there a competitor maybe that kind of inspired you to want to do this professionally?
Absolutely. So it was actually a match that really I always kind of joked around and toyed around with the idea yeah, I'm going to do that one day. But it was gosh, probably 2015, 2016. It was Bayley versus Sasha at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. One of the top 3 women's matches I've ever seen. And I remember I was just so invested in that match. I was crying by the end of it. And I was if I ever thought about doing this now I have to. It just kind of lit that flame.
I love that so much. That was the infamous. That was the show that I think Sasha stole. Fan turned pro wrestler herself, Izzy Moreno's headband, I believe.
Yes, yes, it was.
It's crazy. So when did you decide, kind of, I know you kind of just touched on it, but when did you decide that, this isn't just going to be a hobby, this isn't going to be something I enjoy, from the periph, like, kind of, I want to do this with my life? When did that decision kind of take place?
So I feel like the turning point was really like my junior year of high school. Like I really like it consumed my every thought. Like I have to do this or I have to at least try,
Yeah.
and look back and say at least I tried.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had a conversation with my parents because there's nowhere here in Abilene that has like a training facility or a dojo or anything. And I found out about Rampage Wrestling in Lubbock and I was like, please, please let me start training. And they told me that as soon as I graduated high school, that they would sign off and let me go. So I ended up graduating high school almost a year early so
Wow.
I could start training. um, and I was too at this point in my life where I needed something that pushed me, not only physically, but mentally. Like I needed something to strive at and work towards. I just kind of felt like I was in this slump of like, I don't know what I want to do in my life other than this, so I need that thing that's going to drive me to be
Yeah.
better. And I mean, that was kind of like really the turning point was like mid junior year, like, I've got to do this.
Absolutely. So what kind of went into your training? How rigorous was it there at Rampage?
So there is a small group of us, so it was pretty like individualized and I felt like, it was very, very hands-on from day one. And cause it's Lubbock's like 3.5 hours from where I live, I was only able to go on Saturdays in the beginning. So I would leave super early on Saturdays, get there at like 9 in the morning and stay till in the afternoon, just training. And I was the only female
Right.
at Rampage. So, I mean, I was just working with the guys all the time. So in the beginning, it was like a lot, like it was a rude awakening. But I mean, I pretty much from the get go felt like family. So, I mean, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, and I would love to hear the answer to this as well. Is how prepared did you feel, when you finally had the opportunity to step through that curtain and have your debut match? What was that experience like? Did you feel prepared?
Yes and no. It was a very surreal experience. Like everyone that I knew that had like already been actively wrestling on the indie circuit, kind of was like, it's going to be a weird feeling. Like, you're going to be really excited, but then, like, deathly terrified. You're going to feel like you have all of the tools in your arsenal and then not at the same time. And I was like, yeah, 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 whatever. And I thought, like, I remember the week of, like, I was like, I am ready. I am good to go. And, like, I was in Gorilla and, like, 30 seconds before I stepped out the curtain, just everything just disappeared. Like it was like I had never stepped in a ring before in that like second. But it was just like a freak out moment. Like nothing prepares you for that. And I can't put it into words how it feels. It's something you just have to experience yourself. But I remember like just going out the curtain and my parents were in the first couple rows and I found my dad. And I remember my whole entrance, I just like locked eyes with my dad and that's what I had to do like the whole match. Like I just had to pretend like I was only wrestling in front of my parents, and that's kind of what got me through that first like intense like anxious experience because it was terrifying.
I love that. Um, and that's funny you say that because obviously you've been in the business now a couple of years. How do you handle, not only the physical toll that takes on your body and the physical demands, but also the mental demands that go with that level of professional wrestling? Some people see the WWE, they see AEW, TNA, they don't understand the grind that is indie wrestling, especially with you being in Texas, which is just wide open spaces, hours long car drives. Like you said, you're driving, 7 hours a day just to train.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of handle the physical and mental demands?
Yeah, that's something that nobody told me getting into the industry, like the physical like recovery side of it. Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but the mental like strain that it puts on someone is rough sometimes. Like I feel like coming down from adrenaline sometimes, like after like a really busy or a really good weekend, is like kind of one of the worst feelings in the world. Like you always hear people talk about an adrenaline dump and you're like, yeah, whatever, but it's real. Like it's honestly kind of depressing. Like it's hard sometimes. So I just always try to stay busy in my personal life too and keep myself preoccupied and just kind of prepare for my matches coming up because like I said, like the physical demands are demanding, but the mental stress is rough
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's
Hey,
another
you. Yeah, watching this right now. I see you. If you're enjoying what you're watching, I've got one quick favor to ask, and it only takes a second, costs you nothing, and makes a huge difference. If you could go ahead and hit that like button, maybe drop a comment. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. Doesn't seem like much, but for small creators, it's everything. So let's help more people find this channel and keep the content coming. And honestly, I'm pretty sure the podcast will be really grateful. So if you're having fun, you like what you see, make it official, click those buttons, and the Fans View podcast, we'll see you next time.
and that's another thing that I wanted to ask you about is how hard that balance is between, you have a shoot job. Most people, in the independent scene have one. And you're trying to balance the shoot job with a relationship, with your wrestling schedule, with training, with going to the gym. It's
Mhm.
so much. How do you kind of balance that?
Some weeks are easier and some weeks are harder than others. Like it's weird as it sounds, I don't really have like a routine. It just kind of depends on my mood is from week to week. But yeah, again, that kind of just goes into staying busy. I work full time, I go to the gym, I'm a big writer, so I try to like, in my free time write as much as possible. It just mostly is trying to stay busy to keep me occupied, but then sometimes that kind of I feel like hinders the balance because I don't ever take time to just slow down. So
Right.
that balance is really hard, but I feel like I get so pumped up and so excited for my shows that when they're over, it's kind of hard to come back to that day to day life because all I want to do is do this every single day of my life. And that's just
Yeah.
not possible right now.
Right. Right. So something else I wanted to talk about while we had you today was, you know, in 2025, professional wrestling and social media, they're hand in hand. You can't really have one without the other at this level. How important to you is your social media presence, like specifically as it relates to your career, obviously?
I am not the best with social media. I try. I try to like market myself and promote on social media. That's actually been one of the hardest things for me doing this. I feel like I'm very private in my
Mm,
personal life, so trying to open up in my like wrestling life has been hard for me. So I mean, I'm trying to like do the whole social media thing better and trying to like post at the right times of the day and make posts for each show and stuff. But I mean, again, that kind of goes back to the last question with like stuff going on in my personal life and then my wrestling stuff. It's kind of like hard sometimes to
yeah,
balance all of that.
for sure, absolutely. And the fans are obviously like a huge part of wrestling and that social media experience. Um, do you have any fan interactions? I know you're only 3 years in, but do you have any like fan interactions that really stick out to you, whether it be positive or a negative, creepy, whatever?
Yeah, no, for sure. I've had some really, really cool fan interactions. especially here in my hometown. Every once in a while I'll have just like a really, really cool fan interaction here in town. One that really sticks out to me was one about a year ago. I was at Target and I heard someone going, Aryn, Aryn. And I was like, oh, they're probably talking to someone else. And then they were like, Aryn. And I turned around and they were like, yeah, you. And her little girl was like crying, like in tears. And she was like, she just loves you. She wants to be just like you. And this, like, gosh, she couldn't have been older than 10. Gives me this whole spiel about how she wants to wrestle and it's because of me. And that, like, that's something that, like, till the day I die will just be one of those moments. It was like it was one of the first times I felt like, okay, I'm doing something in this
Yeah.
business, because I'm my own worst critic. So I'm always so hard on myself, and I'm like, oh, no one's probably going to remember me. And just little things like that, just like reassure me that, I'm doing something right, at least for someone. And the end of the day, like, if I can inspire one person, like, I change someone's life. And to get to have that interaction with that little girl will always be something that, like, core memory, like, well,
Yeah.
I will
That
hold close to my heart.
that is awesome. We're gonna kind of pivot a little bit to kind of get to know you a little bit, because this is the fans' view. So I like to pull back the curtain some. First off, who is your dream opponent?
My dream opponent, oh, it's a big question. I would say in, like, indie circuit sort of level, she's kind of getting bigger and bigger. But Deonna Purrazzo,
Okay.
and then, like, if we are looking at, like, mainstream, like, WWE level, oof, right now it would probably either have to be Becky or Tiffany Stratton.
Okay. All
For
right.
the time being, yeah.
I
It
like that.
changes every couple
Oh
years,
yeah.
but right now, those are
Yeah.
like my three. Yeah, sorry, I
I
could not
gotcha.
just pick one.
I'll come back in a month, and I'm sure that the answer will be completely
Right.
different. Um, this is a big one. I love to ask all the Texas girls the same question. You're a Texas girl yourself. Your go-to Bucky's item.
Oh, my go-to Bucky's item?
Mm-hmm.
Easy. The white cheddar, like, beaver nuggets.
Love it.
Lovely. Those are amazing. Or the black cherry licorice. Those are like my two go-tos every time I go.
I love that. So here at the Fans View, we have a fun little segment called the Fans Eye View, where I'm going to show you a picture and you just give me the story behind it. This one is pretty fun. You'll have to tell me who this young lady is in this photo.
Oh man. Oh, I should have mentioned them earlier as two of my favorites. They were big inspirations to my career as well. Oh, that was one of the best days of my life. They were wonderful. So this was back at Mania in Dallas a couple years ago. And I saw that they were having a meet and greet, and I try not to be a mark, but I was like, I'm marking today. And I got to meet them, and they were lovely. They were lovely. And this was actually about 15 days before I had my very first match.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had heard mixed reviews on people who had met them. Some people loved them, some people didn't like their interaction with them. And they talked to me for well over 5 minutes. Like, they were absolutely amazing. And I was telling them I was really nervous about having my first match and everything. And they gave me so much great advice. And they were just wonderful human beings. And I really needed, like, a good pep talk because I was so petrified about my first match. And they, like, I don't know, that whole experience, like, see, it still makes me, like, grin ear to ear. It was so awesome, especially to have right before I debuted.
I love that. That's what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
Um, we're gonna kind of take this thing home here, but I have to ask you the two questions that everyone gets asked. First of which, this is the fans' view. What are you a fan of away from the ring?
Um, I absolutely adore writing. I'm not so much a reader, as weird as that sounds, but I love to write. I do love to read like poetry and stuff, so that's a big hobby of mine. But I absolutely love, this is gonna sound weird, but I love shows that are like time pieces, like period pieces, from like different um eras that we've been through. I'm super into Outlander right now. So I absolutely love like watching stuff, about history, researching stuff, especially from like the Renaissance era and stuff. It's a huge hobby of mine.
Okay. And last but not least, what does the term success mean to you at this point of your career and in your life as a young woman? What does success mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. So it's a tough question, but I think when it comes to my wrestling career, it's what I always tell people. My definition of being successful in this business is leaving it better than I found it. Wrestling doesn't owe anybody anything, in my opinion, and it has done so much for me. I rather it's in my personal life or in my career. And so I just see what the business has done for me, and I want to do that for someone else, rather how big of a scale or how small it is. So really, like, I feel like I will feel like I've made it in this industry when I can like look back and be like, okay, I left this or that better than when I found it.
I love that answer. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been a fun conversation. Where can people get a hold of you on social media? Do you have any upcoming shows or projects you want to talk about and tell people about or anything like that?
So as far as social media goes, the best place to get a hold of me is going to be either Facebook or Instagram. I have a Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, but that shows you how often I get on it. I don't get on there. My page is up, but if you ever need to get a hold of me and you message me on there, it's not gonna happen. So Facebook and Instagram are the best places. And as far as upcoming shows, tomorrow, well, Saturday, May 3rd, I am here in my hometown of Abilene with my home promotion Rampage, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm off the following week, and after that, I'm back in Greeley, Colorado at Battleground Pro Wrestling.
Love that. And what is your Instagram handle?
It is Aryn_Eris.
Very easy. Obviously, we'll link it in the description too for folks that don't know. But like I said, I want to thank you so much, Aryn, for coming on tonight. Hopefully, it's the first appearance of many as you kind of start to grow in this business and get even more time logged under that belt. We'll have you on again.
Thank you for having me. I had a lot
Of
of fun.
course, absolutely, guys. Make sure to go check Aryn out. Go hit her Instagram. We're gonna link it in the description. Show her some love. Go check out her matches. If you're in the area in Abilene, in Colorado, go show her a little bit of love and tell her the fans view sent you. But until next time, guys, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff you already know. But most importantly, call your mom.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're gonna be joking me.